Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I am back with part 2 of my 10 cards 1 kit using the Simon Says Stamp June 2018 card kit. If you haven't seen the first 5 cards, make sure you check out the video that I posted yesterday. So let's jump in here to card number 6. I'm working directly on one of the Periwinkle card bases. And here I've lined up that floral stamp somewhat in the center, and I'm just going to stamp this out using Fawn Deep Sea ink. Next, I've grabbed a scrap of MFT's After Midnight cardstock, and I'm just trimming this down in 1/4 inch stripes. So I made a total of 5 of those with the paper that I had left there. Next, I'm going to grab some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape, and I'm going to run that along the back of all 5 of those stripes. And here I'm just going to line those up until I get a pattern that I'm happy with. And I ended up doing 3 at the top and 2 at the bottom. So I'm just going to peel off the backing, and I'll place all of those down across my card base. And then I went ahead and just trimmed off the excess. Here I'm working on my inside panel. I'm again stamping using that Fawn Deep Sea ink, and I'm working on a Nina panel trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4. I've just positioned that so I'll have just a little bit of that flower peeking down from the top there. And then for the inside sentiment, I went with Love and Hugs on Your Day. I also then stamped the sentiment Happy Birthday on the front, and I just kept that in line with the stripes that I had placed down earlier, and again stamped that using that Deep Sea ink from Fawn. I added some ATG to the back of my panel and placed that on the inside of my card base, and that will complete card number 6. For card number 7, I've trimmed out this panel using my MFT Blueprints 32 frame die, and here I'm stamping the sentiment You Are So Loved using my Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink. I'm going to use my ATG gun, and I'll go ahead and attach that on the top of my card base. And then for the inside, I did a similar sentiment using one of the larger words with the smaller phrase, and went with Wishing You Joy, again using my Intense black ink. I used a leftover stripe of that floral pattern paper, and I'm going to place that across the bottom of my panel. And then I'll trim off the excess and use my ATG gun to attach that to the inside of my card base. Finally, to finish that up, I grabbed my Nuvo drops, and this color is Ebony Black, and I'm just going to place a few dots in each of those 3 large flowers. And that will complete card number 7. For card number 8, I decided to again do some no line coloring, and this time I'm going to work on some gray cardstock. This is MFT's Cement Gray. I'm using Fawn's Hippo ink, which is sort of a medium gray ink, to stamp that out. And I've placed my flowers on a bit of an angle. I'm going to let some of that hang off the panel there. I then went ahead and colored this in off camera. I used the same Prismacolors I used in the previous video and just left the red colored out and just did a bouquet of the pink and purple. I'm going to go ahead and again use this Hippo ink to stamp the sentiment, "You are so kind." And then on the inside panel, I'm going to add the sentiment, "Thanks." And because I can't get enough of those florals, I'm going to add a little section of this larger floral stamp peeking up off the bottom. Again, stamping that with the Hippo ink. I'll go ahead and attach my colored panel to the top of my card base. And the card base is made from MFT's steel gray cardstock. And then I'll attach my inside panel the same way. And that will complete card number 8. For card number 9, I'm going to create another shaker card. So I'm using this hot air balloon panel and I'm going to trim that down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I thought it would be fun to create the shaker over top of that hot air balloon. So I've grabbed my Sizzix circle die, and this measures 2 3/4. It fit that balloon almost perfectly. I went ahead and trimmed that out, and now I've just placed that paper on top of my card front. It's not stuck down. I'm just using it for positioning. So I added a TG to the back of the balloon piece, and I'm going to place that inside the circle. That way I make sure I have it in the exact right position. And then I'll take that paper away. Here I've got some ivory tulle, and I'm going to trim that out to make sure it'll cover my balloon. And then I'm going to make a box using my 1/8 inch Scor-Tape around where I want the tulle to be held. I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Happy Birthday" on top of that panel, and I'm using Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink for that. And then here I've gone ahead and peeled away the backing from that Scor-Tape, and I'm placing down my sequins. This is Tailored Expressions Snow Flurries Mix. And I'm going to press the edges of my tulle into that Scor-Tape, make sure that's down nice and tight. Next I place some more 1/8 inch Scor-Tape behind that full front panel. I'm going to peel away the backing, and then I will place that down on top of my card base. And that will hide all of my raw edges. For the inside, I'm going to stamp directly on the card base. And I went with the sentiment "Wishing you love and hugs." Again, using my Intense Black ink to stamp that. And then I had a leftover piece of that purple sky, so I trimmed that down, added some ATG, and just placed that on the bottom of the inside of the card. And that will complete card number 9. So for card number 10, I decided to work directly on this 6x6 pattern paper. And I've lined up my floral. I wanted that to be at sort of an angle, and I'm going to stamp that out using Distress Oxide Seedless Preserves. So I've stamped this here, and you'll see that my paper moved on me slightly. So I did my best to get it back in the original position. It was slightly off, but all it really did was make the lines a little bit darker. You can't really tell that it's not quite perfect. So I went ahead and kept working with it. And once I got this floral stamped, I went ahead and trimmed that down to 4 by 5 1/4. On the bottom corner, I added the sentiment "You are so kind," and then here I'm stamping the sentiment "Thanks." and I felt like it still needed something more. So again, I took that floral stamp and I'm just adding a little corner of that up at the top there. And again, you can see how much thinner that line is, so I just shifted that slightly, stamped it again so that I would get the same darker line like I had on the bottom florals. I'm going to take that then and add some ATG to the back, and I'll place that on top of my card base. And then for the inside, I'm going to stamp directly on the card base, and I went with the sentiment Love and Hugs. I think that was my favorite sentiment from the stamp set. And then I added a stripe of the pattern paper along the side. I had to move it so my card base tore slightly. So to fix that, I grabbed just a thin 1/4 inch strip of MFT's Pure Plum cardstock, and I'm going to place that along the side of that pattern paper, and you'll never know it's slightly torn underneath there. And that will complete card number 10. Here is a quick look back at the cards from today. You'll find additional photos as well as a full list of supplies at my blog post, linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.